of cloud and land. This project unfolds at Amazon's Seattle campus. As Amazon has developed its downtown headquarters, the neighborhood has shifted from a slow pace to a center of glass towers and green. It is the largest downtown office footprint of any single company in a city in North America. The area has earned titles like Innovation District, for which Amazon proudly takes credit and uses as reason to expand further. As Amazon has expanded its reach, public space across the campus has become the territory of corporate control. Spaces that were once open courtyards are segmented into private seating where payment is required for access. Borders and edges are controlled with increased security features. Strange PR campaigns like offering free bananas outside offices play out to appease the public and claim space. Throughout the campus, connecting networks are standardized in the name of efficiency and profit. Buildings are divided into retail and office space, both increasingly operated by Amazon-owned enterprises. The campus is planted with a consistent palette, making it feel unified, but also generic and placeless. While public seating is available, its use is often monitored and restricted for approved activities. The labor and maintenance of Amazon's system is hidden behind empty monuments, like Amazon spheres, that present an illusion of benevolence. The spheres resemble the forms of geodesic domes, linking Amazon to narratives of progress and collaboration. While the spheres are highly marketed, the only publicly accessible space is a small gallery, aptly named the Understory, which boasts the features of the spheres to a public unable to access them. The blur of working, natural, and social spaces seeks to make labor invisible and remove opportunities for complaints in the workspace. A critical moment is approaching when Amazon's control will take over the agency of the city. This project takes place in this speculative future. As Amazon expands its empire, it will continue to operate with a further focus on extending control throughout the city. Its decisions will be shaped by a search for maximizing efficiency. The illusions it has worked to create will be upheld to justify its growth. In the coming decade, new technologies will lead to a further concentration and centralization of power and wealth in Amazon's domain. Amazon will seek to command a frictionless urban environment through the increased commodification of space. The future is explored here through 3 vignettes. The vignettes are deliberately singular rhetorical moments of a complex story, rather than one linear narrative. They draw on the concept of worlding, which serves not to precisely predict or fix the future, but instead raise questions on the present relationships between ourselves and the worlds we inhabit. Join us on an exploration of resistance in the city of the future. You will be asked to inhabit each vignette and take part in a struggle for community against the tension of Amazon's control. Move carefully and look closely. Many connections are needed to build a new future, and interventions are not always authorized. The first vignette takes place in the square. This is occupying data space. This vignette asks, what will become of public, democratic space when Amazon knows us better than we know ourselves, when the same data used to sell us products can be used to sell us ideologies? In this vignette, you'll be asked to play the role of a community activist looking to push back against Amazon's control. You find yourself in the remains of what was once a public courtyard, a place for chance meetings, conversations, and ideas. Now, the space is dominated by urban data and fulfillment centers. Previously relegated to the remote peripheries, these have recently taken over the urban core as well. Data is the currency of the future, and it has been concentrated and guarded. You feel uncomfortable in the space. The air feels stale and warm, a byproduct of the machines inside. A constant hum of electronics and cooling fans buzzes in high frequency in your ears, like a mosquito hovering just past the corner of your eye. But the discomfort of the space also brings opportunity. You notice pioneer species drawn to the warmer temperatures, struggling to find space on the smooth, lifeless surfaces. Do you help them? Begin by carving out paths to create room for growth. You must work quickly in the night to avoid detection. Be sure to work in groups so someone can keep a lookout at all times. Forming these new communities in the ground is unauthorized. With the paths carved, you can introduce new plants to accompany the emerging ecologies. It's best to choose plants that are tolerant of urban conditions and foot traffic, but there are no rules. The space is shaped by you and your fellow occupants. In addition to the pioneer species and initial plantings, weeds will find their way into the grid, and over time it will spread out, flowing across the space, mimicking the networks of information and goods flowing through Amazon's control. This new growth thrives in the artificial warmth of the machines. The space takes on more life, but social connection remains absent. You pause to observe the plants, but no one pauses to talk. You long for a spark of conversation and exchange. Do you reach out? The smart poles that structure the vertical dimensions of the space look down on you, recording your movements and your identity in a careful database. They give you a sinking sense of paranoia. But again, an opportunity arises in the fear. Take a string and secure it along the poles, overhead but in sight. Work within communities and add expression. Colorful sharing notes dance in the air currents of the cooling fans. These analog connections call out new ideas, feelings, and offers of exchange. Over time, notes fade with rain or sun, and new ones take their place. The connections are ephemeral, not stored in a server. You receive a notification when a new note is posted, but you must visit the space to discover its contents. Maybe it's someone new to the city looking to make a friend, or an activist organizing a protest over data privacy, or a student looking to trade used books. You smile as the noise of people rises above the electric hum as ideas are shared and trades are made. This social system is more robust than Amazon's top-down consumption. The space may be short-lived. Amazon may step in at any moment to tear down the notes, remove the plants, and fill the cracks. But the networks are resilient. The interventions can be reinstalled, or the connections can move to a new square, gaining strength through community. The second vignette takes place in the street. This is For Our Collective Autonomy. This vignette asks, how will urban nature be shaped in a system that prioritizes economic gains and top-down engineering? In this vignette, you will be asked to play the role of a maintenance worker, contracted by Amazon to control a new resource. You reach a former street in a grid of network of Amazon's expansion. With the advance of driverless cars and resulting reduced traffic, side streets are no longer needed for vehicle travel. Amazon has seized on the opportunity for new space. To offset its constant rhythm of clicks, orders, and packages, and present a facade of sustainability, Amazon has implemented a smart carbon sink, a grid of silver maples selected for their tolerance of urban pollution and their efficiency at storing carbon, is installed in the street. Sensors embedded in the ground and the trees call out to drones above, creating a comprehensive dataset of the landscape. Every movement is mapped and recorded as the system works to maximize efficiency. Your role is to assess the data and ensure the optimization of the network. Everything is organized neatly and without deviation in identical rows, and as you look at the trees, they hardly feel like living beings. Instead, they are reduced to cogs in Amazon's machine, unchanging and purely economic in value. But as you walk through the rows, completing maintenance checks, you notice subtle changes at ground level. Against the perfect order of the sensor grid, tree roots start to grow and shift, lifting the surface to form new microtopographies. The trees search for agency against the control of the system. Gradually, the lines of the grid are overtaken and erased by the ridges and valleys of the roots. As spring warms, you notice a new community starting to merge as the trees breathe and volunteer seedlings take root. Do you want to join in? While Amazon's network of sensors is motivated by performance metrics, it lays the groundwork for new knowledge. Through your maintenance work, you have access to the information, and you can use it to follow the lead of the trees. You begin to shape your movement through the grove, not following the straight lines of the sensors, but the logic of the trees. Data and observation alert you to the presence of sensitive roots or emerging growth even before they become visible to the eye. You lay wood chips to shape paths through the grove guided by this knowledge. The wandering paths are defined to invite access, but easily rerouted to shift with the trees as they grow. Plant communities establish themselves around the trees. You come to know the trees as neighbors. You care about them as living beings for more than just their efficiency or function. Tapping into the numbered systems set up by Amazon, you are invited to share your thoughts with this new community. You use the systems meant to rein the trees, instead to communicate with them. You send a message to your favorite tree of how you admire the summer leaves dappling the late afternoon sunlight. In exchange, you receive a message back from the tree. She shares environmental data collected by the sensor system to tell you what she needs to thrive and which plants share her community. She guides you through the space, pointing out ephemeral changes like the first falling leaves in autumn or a bird building a nest in spring. Overhead and below ground, the sensors continue to monitor. They value only the outputs and efficiency, ignoring the richer strength of the uncalculatable connections. The third vignette takes place at the spheres. This is, systems that are not upgraded will no longer be supported. This vignette asks, how will labor and displacement be further made invisible with new technologies? In this vignette, you will be asked to play the role of a local community member, facing the looming threat of displacement at the hands of Amazon's expansion. You land at Amazon's spheres. The strange monument has grown only more extreme with time. Amazon's workforce has been increasingly automated, and the remaining human workers are even more strictly controlled. The spheres are even less of a workspace now, and even more of a false image. In the face of increasing criticism about workers' rights, the landscape around the monument is remade to remove space for gathering or leisure. By removing space for employees to gather or spend time outside of work, Amazon seeks to prevent declines in productivity or conversations about unions. Instead, the place is claimed by extensions of Amazon's plant collection. These installations echo the spheres in form and purpose, acting as illusions of benevolence. Advances in technology allow the tropical plants to survive beyond the walls of the dome. Automated subterranean life support systems warm the earth and supply the plants with nutrients and irrigation to sustain an artificially static health. You feel alone, apart from a few isolated Amazon employees rushing between offices. The space is devoid of human activity. You feel sorrow for the workers, constantly monitored for productivity and unable to enjoy a moment's rest. Do you help? You reach out and work together. gather materials from surrounding sites under constant construction and redevelopment spurred by Amazon's so-called innovation. The scaffolding provides a seat, giving employees much-needed space for rest beyond the control of the office. The computer vision that monitors the space is powerful, but not invincible. As common construction materials familiar to the area, the scaffolding avoids detection. You attach screens with silhouetted figures to the structures. This serves as false data to confuse the ever-watching eyes of the system. It cannot easily determine which figure is real, making it harder to enforce rules upon the employees. As more workers and members of the community get involved, the building blocks morph across the site. You watch them transform the space, spreading like a parasite. As the light changes, empty shadows dance across the ground and reflect off the mirrored surfaces of the spheres. They are eerie reminders of the invisibility of labor in Amazon's workforce. The blocks offer opportunity for more than just weary workers. You climb atop one and gain a new perspective on the artificially supported ornamental vegetation. You can hack into the system and uncover new forms of productivity. Begin by grafting an edible species onto a decorative branch. This simple action will take time to bear fruit, but the growth will hide among Amazon's collection, benefiting from its support network. While the branches develop, you can introduce new occupants at the ground as well. Work with your new community to select plants and foster a garden, taking life from the artificial system below the ground. Again, it is safest to work in groups and take cover behind the figures of a building block. As the garden grows, it looks to the scaffolds for support, climbing upwards and spreading out. Supporting the garden requires constant care and work. Unlike Amazon's invisible system, labor is put on display here. Technology assists you to identify species, establish care routines, pinpoint hidden grafts, and connect and collaborate to share the fruits of the labor. You join in with informal gatherings, play, and work. The space is messy and crowded and must continue to shift, disappearing and re-emerging to persist against Amazon's control. As the seasons change, the garden dies back and the activities quiet down, but the shadows and scaffolds remain, providing shelter against the exclusion of Amazon's expansion. Your journey ends here. These vignettes represent only 3 potential single moments in the city, and only a selection of voices and stories and possibilities. As the city is increasingly shaped by control, and tech giants come to dominate both our digital and physical spaces, it is increasingly important to root design in people, not profits. Resilience lies not in optimizing for smartness or efficiency, but in connectivity and listening to unheard voices. Tech companies are branching out beyond their headquarters to new territories, and these will undoubtedly be remade by the same ideologies of control. No matter the future, rethinking to design with empathy for communities over corporations is an essential first step.